What's up, people? Welcome back to the Performance Playbook podcast. We've got the one and only Eric Hinman. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, well, I was very excited to get you on because, again, I get a lot of these podcasts through Instagram, and I feel like you just own that space in the aspect of like building brands, building your own brand, and really like making a name for yourself and showing how people can move in a different way. But before I get too into it, can we just get a little short spiel of who you are?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of changed a bit over time based on what chapter I'm writing. But right now my focus is um, basically living out my perfect days and doing business with people that I really want to do business with. And it took a while to get to that place. I certainly had to trade time for money during a certain period of my life to build enough of a cushion that I could start taking some risks. But yeah, I've always loved entrepreneurship. I love building consumer facing brands. I love hospitality brands. I love hosting people, and I love physical and mental performance. I've competed in 5 Ironmans, getting to the Ironman World Championships twice. And now I am kind of chasing this journey to continue getting stronger to get to the CrossFit Games in my age group. But ultimately, I really enjoy, how I live my life day in and day out. And I'm not really looking at this end goal. I'm really just living my life in a way that when my head hits the pillow at night, I'm like, God damn it, that was a great day. I had conversations with the people I wanted to converse with. I did all of the wellness activities that I enjoy doing. I got to host some people. I got to give back. I got to help build some brands throughout the day. I got to eat good food. I got great sleep. And that's really just a great day for me day in and day out.
Yeah. And I do want to get to the business side at some point, but I really want to like highlight for at least quite a bit the transformation that you've made. And I know you've kind of talked about this probably a good amount, but I think where I'd be interested to start with this whole transformation, it's the specific post that you did from like 28 to 42, 28 to 43. And to me, that just like stands out so much because I feel like our country needs that so badly right now, especially with like obesity rates going up. And again, even just looking at a lot of the things that you push, the companies that you are helping build, it's very inspiring. But I feel like before you can even take physical action, you have to address what the mental change was to actually act upon that. Because action usually is sitting on like the foundation of a good idea. What was the mental side of you wanting to make that change?
I mean, honestly, it was aesthetics to start. I just looked at myself in my late 20s and having been a high school athlete and I got into weightlifting in college and had a decent physique, I found myself pretty out of shape in my late 20s. And I was also lacking energy and just kind of felt like I was going through the motions of life. I was just doing things to satisfy the public perception of success and doing things to satisfy my ego of wanting status. So, in my late 20s, I hired a personal trainer, and through the personal trainer, I committed to working out 5 days a week for 30 to 45 minutes. And it was high intensity interval training along with lifting moderately heavy weights. So basically kind of CrossFit as it is now before I knew what CrossFit was. Um, through him, I started to understand the correlation between exercise, eating healthy, getting enough sleep, and how I felt every day, having mental clarity, having tons of energy. And those two things brought a lot of opportunities into my life. So that's really how I started to correlate exercise, that it wasn't just for this aesthetic, it was to feel a certain way every day, to be the best version of yourself, and then ultimately to attract amazing people and amazing opportunities into your life. And then in my early 30s, I got into triathlon, and that's when I really started to shift everything around health and wellness. I just really enjoyed progressing in triathlon, progressing in my runs, running faster at a lower heart rate, increasing my wattage on the bike, being able to go faster and further. That just really I felt so fulfilled compared to, having the fancy watches and suits and cars and condo where you're just, a lot of that is doing it for status, just so others perceive you to be successful. And, I got to a place where that wasn't really fulfilling anymore. And when I found health and wellness and I found triathlon, all of a sudden I felt good about myself and I felt like I was showing up as the best version of myself. And I started inspiring a lot of people to, focus on their health and wellness because, it's really the foundation for everything else in life. If you can't take care of yourself, then, how can you take care of others? Um, so yeah, there was a major shift from 28 until 34, where I went from this kind of out of shape insurance salesman, sitting all the time, driving 50,000 miles a year, thinking Subway was my healthiest option when I was on the road, to towing the line at the Ironman World Championships and racing alongside the best triathletes in the world. So that those years were very, very transformative. And it was compounding consistencies. It wasn't like one day I went to the gym and all of a sudden I was, jacked and had tons of energy. It was a period of time where I would kind of focus on one thing each year. That first year, and maybe when I was 28 years old, was hiring the personal trainer and understanding complex movements, functional strength training, HIIT training, aerobic conditioning. And then every year thereafter, I focused on something else. So, focusing on sleep for an entire year, just dabbling with different pre-sleep protocols and pre-sleep supplements, and then focusing on recovery, and then focusing on mindset, and then focusing on strength training. Every year, it was kind of something different that I picked to tackle. And, you do that for 15 years, you find yourself in a very good place compared to how I was living my life prior to that, where, I was having 5 to 10 drinks every Friday night and Saturday night and eating whatever I wanted because I didn't have a ton of education around healthy eating and didn't really care about sleep. I thought it was cool to stay out until 2 or 3 in the morning and wake up at 7 and try to hit a workout, still hungover. So, yeah, I just. The power of daily compounding consistencies is crazy. And it doesn't have to be, 15 years. Even just doing it for 6 months, 1 year, it's crazy the two different paths you can go on, just by changing your behaviors throughout, that 365-day period.
Yeah, I love hearing that too because it's exciting for I think people to be able to wrap their mind around how that actually changes. And you said one thing to me that always sticks out is like that clarity. And I couldn't agree
Hmm.
more. Like I had to go through that same learning curve. I was in college. I thought it was kind of fun to, I want to meet people and I want to go out and do these things. And it's the norm to, okay, well, Friday and Saturday, I'm going to go out. I'm going to drink as much as I can because that'll look cool. And it looks like I'm a part of this group. But again, then you start to notice compounding on the bad side, what that actually starts to do and how that catches up to you. So you talk about this clarity. Can you discern between the two, 28 and even 34, the difference of how you felt when you'd wake up, how you would address your day, especially again, right? Like you go out on a Saturday, like what did your Sundays feel like?
Yeah, I mean, when I was 27, 28 years old, every afternoon I had this lull. I just felt super sleepy and I had to do everything in my power to stay awake. It might have been having caffeine or some kind of energy drink to be able to stay awake throughout the afternoon. And, now, like, I'm not really tired until 8 p.m. I have energy all day long. And the mental clarity side of it, especially on a Sunday, comparing my Sundays now to my Sundays then, I mean, Sundays were just a waste. Saturdays were pretty much a waste for me as well. I was on the couch, I was hungover, and all I could really do was just, watch sports or watch some mindless TV. And it was basically just like getting through the day. And, now I just, from a progress standpoint, I feel like my days are too valuable to waste them. Like, I love what I get to do every single day. I can't wait for my workouts. I can't wait for my mountain bike rides. I can't wait for people to come over tonight at 5 p.m. to do contrast therapy with me. I can't wait to cook for people. Like, I'm just stoked for my days and I don't want to waste any of them. So Sundays now are the same as a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Every day is the exact same for me. And, I filled it with these things where I feel good day in and day out and I get to do the exact things that I want to each day. And, I rarely sacrifice that for staying up late at night. Maybe 3 or 4 times a year, I'll go to a late night party, or I'll go to a show at Red Rocks Amphitheater. And I know that getting to bed later than my typical bedtime is going to affect the next day. And again, I'm grateful that from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m., I'm doing exactly what I want each day. And I do think it's important to fill these voids. So, I understand partying. Like, you want to meet people, you want to socialize, you want to meet girls. Like, I get it. But there's alternatives. You can be outside in nature. You can go on a fun adventure. You can join a run club. You can join a triathlon club. You can go to a contrast therapy studio and meet amazing people and have a great conversation. So, all of these things for me were alternatives to how I was living my life before. Like, I think it's really tough to quit something without an alternative. So I found all of these alternatives that gave me the social component that I was looking for.
Yeah, I love that. Because then you get the pushback of, well, again, I might feel isolated if I don't do these things. But just as you said there, it's like you just have to reframe and change. And this was something that Chris Williamson said that I like deeply, deeply feel. And maybe you can connect with this, but like there's a difference between the friends that you just go out with versus the friends that you would actually do activities with. And it's like, it's a completely different component of, social connection, right? Because those people only care for short, you know, actions or conversations that last the night. You don't actually stick with them for that long. And then the people that you're actually willing to do real things with that are going towards your health, those are actual friendships that you're building and connecting with. And those are more long terms. Because again, when I stopped drinking in college, I actually started fading away from a lot of friends. And it seemed like, oh, well, he's being weird. He's being antisocial. He's getting too obsessive with whatever X, Y, or Z is. But what you actually really come to notice is you weed out what your real friends are. Did you kind of have a kind of big like shift with your friend group?
Yeah, I did. And I had great friends throughout all of these different time periods, but I feel like as our interests change and, as how we want to progress changes, the friends around us are going to change because, the people you hang out with the most, they're going to be the ceiling to, whatever you want to achieve in life. So if you want to raise that ceiling, oftentimes you're going to have to find other friends that inspire you and can push you past that ceiling. Today, yeah, my friends are very different than my friends in my 20s. I don't not consider them to be friends, but I'm not spending my days with them anymore because my interests have dramatically changed since then. And I also feel like my friendships now, there's so much more empathy for each other. They're just stronger relationships because I've hit hard workouts with these people. I've done Ironmans. I've gone on long bike rides and long mountain trail runs, and I've jumped in cold streams and sat in hot saunas. And I think there's a component of, the fist bumps, the camaraderie of overcoming something together. But also in those states, you're pretty authentic, you're vulnerable, and you go deep really quick. I always share that I have the best conversations of my life in the sauna every
In
single
the
night, and
sauna.
that's why it's such a big part of my daily practice. It's not just for my physical recovery, it's because I want to go deep with people. I don't want to have surface level conversations. I want really strong, deep relationships with people. So, the sauna is kind of this truth box where within 5 minutes, everyone's pretty vulnerable, everyone's sweating profusely. Your phone is going to overheat there, so there's no distractions, and you just have these really good conversations with people where you build deep relationships. And like party friends, they're more superficial, more shallow friendships and relationships in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So then take it back to the original kind of idea we were building on. If you were to transfer that change in your mindset when you wanted to, even just for the aesthetic reason, how would you guide someone in the right direction in changing their physique and changing their life in a more healthy way? What would you tell them, even mentally? What would be that start for them?
I mean, starting is the hardest part. I mean, in anything you do in life, starting and going down a different path is always the hardest part. And, also know that it's going to take a little bit of time to have any kind of transformation in anything. I like to say there's this kind of 6 month drop in period in anything new that I try to do where, the beginning phase sucks. It's really tough to find flow state. It's tough to really see much progress early on. But if you stick with anything long enough, you start to see progress. And then once you start to see progress, you get into this flow state with it. And then, there's this fast curve of progress. But, it's sticking with things long enough that you start to see that. So, yeah, my advice would be whatever you think is going to move the needle for you the most, start with that. For me, that was exercise. It was dialing in, making sure I was exercising 5 days a week in a smart way. Like, not going in and just doing some bicep curls, going in and doing functional lifts, deadlifts and squats and, overhead presses and bench presses, and then also conditioning. Like during that time period, conditioning sucked. My heart rate was sky high doing these things. And, most of those early workouts, I felt like I was going to throw up afterwards. Now I'm pretty tolerant to it because I've done it so much. But back then it was hard. And, I dreaded a lot of those 6 a.m., 40-minute workouts with my personal trainer because I knew how much it was going to friggin' hurt. So, pick whatever you think will give you the most progress. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And, it certainly didn't happen, just with the flick of a switch. There was probably a 6 month period where I was contemplating doing it and then finally made the commitment. So, obviously this stuff is easier said than done, but the faster you rip the band-aid off and commit to something, the better off you're going to be. And then again, like realize that, anyone that you look up to, there's been years of just compounding interest that they have. So, like I always get inspired by people, but don't compare yourself to people because you don't know what their journey was to get to where they are. Again, I've been doing it for 15 years, and only after 15 years, do I have a lot of this dialed in, but I didn't always have it dialed in. I had to start with one thing, taking that step, hiring that personal trainer that led to a habit of doing it where I didn't have to think about it anymore. And then, I was dialing in eating and dialing in sleep until those became habitual and I didn't have to think about them anymore. It was just part of my normal day.
Yeah. Yeah. So then it's funny too, because if you think about it, some people could kind of throw some backlash at you like, oh, well, you just wanted to, change things because you didn't like how you looked. And that could be almost seen as a negative thing. But in my mind, and I think you'd probably agree, is utilize whatever you can to push that needle forward. So if that is, hey, I just don't necessarily like how I look, and I think that's okay to be pretty, not necessarily hard on yourself, but to be honest. You look in the mirror and say, I could be a better version of myself. Again, it's like, look at you now at 43, like jacked out of your gills. Like that's nuts. And that should be inspiring and like, have that goal up there. But I think the hard part too is, especially with me starting to work with people, I have this side online business that I'm starting to build. It is interesting to see it's not even necessarily starting, but that consistency period. And I think you even said it, it's the 6 months. Those are so hard to really commit to. Like, can you find a reason to really make sure that like day in and day out that you can go in? So do you think maybe that wanting to change your looks is the best way of starting things? Or what do you think is a powerful inspiration tool that people can utilize to like actually stay consistent with this journey?
Yeah, I mean, now for me, it's the feeling that keeps me consistently wanting to do it. I want to feel the best version of me. So that's why I continue to do it. Yeah, I mean, I think whatever motivator there is early on, use that to your advantage to make a change. But ultimately, I think feeling is going to be the stickiest thing. If you start to feel a certain way and you compare that to how you once felt, then most people want to feel really good. Most people want to be happy. Most people want to be fulfilled. Most people want amazing people in their life. They want. Um, I think that I think the public forces us towards capitalism and just chasing money to a detriment. Obviously we all need a certain amount of money to have a house and to have some nice things and to buy food and all of that. But, I feel like that is the definition of success, especially in the US for many of us. And I don't know, I've really changed my definition of success over the years to like I want to have enough freedom to do exactly what I want day in and day out and be around the people I want to be around and do the things I want to do. And that's success for me, just being fulfilled every single day.
Mm. So then, how would, because again, you talked about your perfect day and it sounds so enticing, but I feel like people again could be, hearing that day and saying, well, that's not even realistic for me. And again, how hard was that? And maybe we should start there is how long did it take and how hard was that transition to get out of the sales job into producing, the situation where you are now, where you're working with businesses and you're more on the entrepreneurial side of things?
Yeah, I mean, from 21 until 28, I was running an insurance agency. I built up a book of business, so it was an asset and it was residual income that allowed me to start taking some risks. Then I partnered with a friend on a software company that we built up to about 15 employees over a 4-year period. And that, that was really my first time doing something that I was really passionate about. The insurance business was something that my father gave me a great opportunity to be able to build this agency, and I'm grateful that he did. I'm grateful that I was able to build this, financial cushion. But the software company was really my first passion project. And then from there, everything I've done since then has just been more and more aligned with my passions and interests. I opened up a gym in upstate New York. I opened up several restaurants with business partners in upstate New York. And then, I got into triathlon from 2010 to 2015 and started to build a following on social media with no intention of ever it becoming a personal brand or a business. And it's really just been the last 7 years that that's turned into, this consulting marketing agency business that, I love doing today. So yeah, it was a journey to get to where I am. And, did I think that my life would be based around exercise and health and wellness and inspiring people on social media and working with, CPG wellness brands when I was in my 20s? Hell no. I thought that insurance agent was going to be my path until I sold that agency and I retired when I was 55 years old. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's being mindful day to day of am I getting closer to where I really want to be? So, early on, I think most people are probably going to have to either trade time for money or do something that, they may not completely enjoy. But, try and pick these opportunities where you can build assets or you can build residual income so that you have this cushion to then start doing these side hustles that can become your main hustle. And then ultimately, it'll give you the freedom to really design your day the way you want to.
Mm, yeah, I love that. And it's great advice because, we can say it'd be nice for everyone to just instantaneously jump into the entrepreneurial side, but that's just not the reality of, how people come into money and things that look like that. I do want to jump back and maybe you can just walk us through like what the actual perfect day looks like for you because I would love to see if we can extrapolate a lot of those pieces for just the regular 9 to 5 day person. How can we start to implement what, a lot of these great pieces that you have? But if you could just walk us through what your perfect day is. I know you've kind of explained it in a lot of videos, but I think it's exciting to actually hear all of the pieces to it because it's like when you explain, I'm like, that's beautiful. Like I could do that every single day. So if you could kind of explain what that looks like for everyone.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, so the steps to get there were really during the Ironman years when I had a lot of time alone in nature with an elevated heart rate, and I started to become really mindful of that was an amazing day or why that wasn't an amazing day. And I started writing out all of the conversations, the people I was around, the environments I was in, the things I was doing where I was just completely in flow state. Like I didn't want to be doing anything else. I didn't want to be with anyone else. I didn't want to be anywhere else. And then I did the same for times when my mind was wandering, where, I was wishing I was somewhere else. I was in a conversation where I just wasn't present in that conversation, where I was doing an activity where I just wasn't really enjoying it. I didn't feel like I was giving any value or getting any value. And so, I mean, that ultimately led to how I live my life today. And I wrote out this list of what I call my tiny wins. And, a huge component of it is exercise and being outside. So I like to get in at least one, generally two workouts each day. I'm trying to progress in the sport of CrossFit, so a lot of it is around that. And then every year, I have a big obstacle on my calendar of some big endurance race. This year I have two of them. I have the Leadville mountain bike race, and I have this 80-mile water bike ride from the Bahamas to Florida coming up in about a month called the Crossing. Training for those is definitely one of my priorities. I like getting at least 8 hours of sleep, so that is a huge factor in having my perfect days, making sure I get enough sleep so I have lots of energy. Um, I time block about 3.5 to 4 hours every day to have calls or to do podcasts with people. And, I work with about 40 brands at any one time, helping them build their business. So investing in them. I'm raising money for them. I'm obviously creating content for them. I'm seeding product for them. I'm putting on community events for them. So I'm kind of acting like a marketing agency for these brands that I work with. So making sure I have time to be able to do that. And I also love like providing value. And I feel like I've learned a lot over the years. And I get just as much of a dopamine hit from providing value as the party receiving the value. I make sure I get outside for at least 60 minutes every single day. That's normally combined with the mountain biking, so I have an elevated heart rate during that period of time. Um, my day generally starts by making espresso, trying to make the perfect cup of espresso. I love cooking for people, so most nights manning our Yoder smoker, and I'm smoking meat for whoever stays after the contrast therapy session. Um, 5 to 6:30 p.m. every night is dedicated to contrast therapy and having people over to our house that we get to meet new people that way and also have really good conversations with friends while doing that. Um, Hug, kiss, tell someone you love them. I have a girlfriend who, if anyone is watching this on the video, was
Yeah.
just in the background taking our dog Blaze for a walk. So making sure that I have quality time with Sarah each day. And then plan an adventure. I'm a huge proponent of always having things to look forward to. I have lots of fun things that are coming up on my calendar. I really look forward to, my daily mountain bike rides out in Colorado in nature. But, I always have these fun things to look forward to. So I think that's really important in life is to have these things that you're really looking forward to on a fairly regular basis. So yeah, those are my tiny wins and how I've designed my perfect day.
I love that. So then if you were to kind of start to implement and help someone start, because again, like working out is such a great like gateway drug to all of the other things that you're doing. But for someone just working a 9 to 5, what would be some just basic tips or advice to start that? Especially if you're trying to get like the 8 hours. How would you help them, start a beautiful routine of health and wellness, we'll call it?
Well, I mean, I think first it's being mindful of those things in your life where you want to spend more time doing them because you feel very fulfilled. Family obviously is a big one. If you have kids, that's a big one. How can you create your life to spend the most time with the people you want to spend it with and doing the things that you really want to be doing? And, if you're working a 9 to 5 that you don't enjoy, then, I would recommend start to figure out what a side hustle can be. If you have people out there that you aspire to be like or live like, reach out to them. I mean, that's really the only way to short track success is to have mentors, to reach out to people who have gotten where you want to go and ask them how they did it. And then, follow in their footsteps, take their, daily execution of how they were able to do it and apply it to your life. So those would be my biggest recommendations. But being mindful is really the first one of just understanding that life is short and are you going to have periods of time where you're just going through the motions? Of course, we all do. But, try to get to a place where you're really living life on your terms and you're spending your time in a way that you want to, and you're spending your time with people that you want to be spending it with.
Mm. Yeah, and again, it's like I said, it looks like at 28 and then with the athletic pursuit, it became like, and I recognize this whole same thing too, is it's a rabbit hole for starting to go down all of the health and wellness things, starting the sauna, ice bath, hit different ways of eating and even thinking. What was like the first big click for you? Because again, right? So you're starting to train differently. You're starting to train more consistently. What was like one big thing that started to flow into your life, such as like sauna, or I don't know if you do like red light therapy? What were the things that really started to compound in your, we'll call it like recovery side of the health and wellness space that you're doing?
Yeah, on the recovery side, it was definitely contrast therapy. And, that started with infrared sauna use back in 2012, 2013, 14, when I was using it specifically for heat acclimation to race the Ironman World Championships. But I started to notice after each of those infrared sauna sessions that I felt very similar to how I would feel post-workout. I just felt energized. I had a massive mood boost. My body felt loose and limber. Um, and then when I moved to Colorado in 2017, I found a place called Denver Sports Recovery here, and they had an infrared sauna and they also had a hot tub and a cold plunge. And the routine that others were doing there was sitting in the infrared sauna for about 50 minutes at 155 degrees, and then 3 rounds of 5 minutes in a hot tub at about 105 degrees, and 5 minutes in a cold tub at about 51 or 52 degrees. So I did that religiously for 2 years straight, and I started to see physical benefits of a lot of my aches and pains that mounted up during the Ironman years started to go away. But I also recognized the tremendous mood boost that I was getting from it, and then also the conversations and I was having and the people I was meeting. What really kept me coming back. I just felt this tremendous sense of community by going there. So, I took mental note of that, and I realized that when I built or bought a home in Colorado, I wanted it to be this wellness hosting compound where I had easy access to it, but I could also provide others easy access to it. So, that's what we have here now at our house is this wellness oasis where we invite people to experience these things. And the one thing I like best about sauna specifically is it starts out pretty easy. You're just in this hot room. So anyone can do it, and anyone can reap the benefits of it without a ton of exertion. Obviously, the longer you stay in, the harder it gets. But cold exposure I think is amazing as well. But you're going to have to get past the mental barrier of this sucks immediately when you get in the cold water. Like anything in life, though, the more you do anything, the better you're going to get at it, and the more mental resilience around it you'll have. So yeah, for me, it's 3 rounds of 20 minutes in a sauna at 200 degrees and 3 to 5 minutes in our ice barrel at about 45 degrees. And I do that every single night that I'm home in Colorado. And even when traveling, I typically will look up places that have this, or, I'll message friends who I know have a setup, or I'll at least book an Airbnb with a bathtub so I can take a hot Epsom salt bath at night.
Hmm. So what would you say is like the easiest barrier to entry when it comes to the recovery side of things for someone? Would it be the sauna? Would it be the ice bath? What's the best way to start for someone?
I mean, I think the easiest thing is just walking, standing, doing low impact cardio, taking walking meetings. Those are all incredible forms of recovery because they're going to help promote blood flow. I very rarely am sitting throughout the day, and I'm moving often, and that's a lot of why I'm not stiff and achy ever is because I keep the blood flow going. But yeah, as far as a protocol, I think you get the most bang for your buck doing the contrast therapy. And if you can withstand the cold, then in 3 minutes, it's incredible the benefits you get from cold exposure. The sauna, you have to stay in there a bit longer to reap some of these benefits, but the sauna is, I think, the easiest way to get some amazing recovery in. And a lot of gyms now have saunas, and I see more and more of these recovery facilities or contrast therapy studios popping up. So, you don't have to buy it and have it at your home. You can find these places where you can do it, or you can join a gym that has it.
Yeah. And then when I don't know if this is like a big deal for you, unless it's just straight up recovery, but I know on the hypertrophic side of things, if you're trying to like build muscle, you kind of want to start with the cold therapy first instead of after. Is that something you necessarily think about, or you just utilize it to recover and that helps you keep going, building, etc.?
Yeah, great question. This is obviously a pretty hot topic.
Yeah.
For me, I do it every night at 5 p.m. I do my CrossFit training at 8 or 9 a.m. most days. So it's spread out quite a ways past my CrossFit training. With that said, I'm much more interested in feeling good day in and day out. I'm more interested in physical progress, strength, anaerobic capacity, aerobic capacity, and all of that stuff is just compound volume. I don't have to have the biggest muscles in the world to progress in CrossFit or, endurance. So, I would recommend if you are not a bodybuilder and if your sole goal is not building, is building like tremendous amounts of muscle, then don't do it right afterwards. There are studies showing that it's going to reduce inflammation, which is why you feel good after. So if you want big muscles, if you want to be a bodybuilder, yeah, spread it out at least 6 to 8 hours after that training session. But, if you want to feel good day in and day out, if you want to be a lifestyle athlete, if you want to progress in endurance, and I would say even if you want to progress in strength, I would do it when you can fit it in. Like doing it is better than not doing it. It is going to help with recovery and it's going to help you be able to perform again the next day. And again, like so many things in life are just compounding consistencies, whether it's, strength training, running, cycling, or, just having enough energy and clarity to build a business. For those reasons, I would say do it when you can, whenever it is most convenient in your schedule that you can do it on a regular basis.
Sure. Okay. That makes sense. So then the other piece I would want to touch on now that you are older and you start to hear this quite a bit is, well, you slow down, you get more sore. It's not as maybe safe to do all these strength training types of movements such as CrossFit and etc. What would be your pushback on that to like inspire people that are older or even starting later why that might be a faulty way of thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 43 now. I'm turning 44 in August, and I'm training the highest volume I've ever trained in my life, specifically around CrossFit. I definitely trained higher volume during the triathlon years, running, biking, and swimming. But as far as strength training and anaerobic conditioning go, I'm training the most I've ever trained. I'm the strongest I've ever been in most movements. The only thing that I used to be stronger at was bench press because I did it so much in college and right after college. But everything else I'm stronger at. And anaerobically, I mean, I'm posting my fastest times in CrossFit Metcons, faster times than when I was in my late 20s and 30s. So, yeah, I mean, I can only speak from my experience that, the years of doing it, it's continued to allow me to progress in the sport. Am I aging? Of course, we're all going to be aging, but I do believe you can either age at 3% each year, or you can age at 8+% each year. And the more of these things you do, the less you're gonna, the less percentage you're gonna age over time. I think for someone just getting into CrossFit in their 40s or 50s, is it possible? Of course it's possible. You just have to check your ego. I mean, I got hurt a ton when I first started CrossFit because I didn't check my ego. I came from this competitive triathlete to being in a competitive environment where I wanted to win these workouts and I didn't build the foundational strength. I didn't build the movement patterns. I didn't have the skill to be able to do a lot of these CrossFit Metcons at the weight prescribed, at the intensity prescribed, because it was a fault of my own for, not taking a step back and building the foundation prior to doing it. So, yeah, my advice, and this goes for anything, like build the foundation first. Like you don't just go out and run a marathon, having not been a runner. Like you start with a half mile and then you build to a mile and then 3 and then 5 and then 10. So, it's the same with strength training, CrossFit, anaerobic conditioning. Like you want to start well below what others are doing that have been doing it for a long time. And, with anything, there's a right way and a wrong way. There's skill involved with this stuff. There's, movement patterns and mechanics and mobility. So, making sure that you do all of those things first before you start layering on heavy weight and layering on intensity is going to help you so that you don't get hurt when you attempt to get into any of these things.
Yeah. And especially when we're looking at the recovery side of things, and I saw you speak about this, quite a bit, but again, when it comes to looking at the overall picture, changing your nutrition might be like one of the biggest ones, especially when you're talking about like physique and really understanding that. And I saw you post about like, you know, eating veggies versus meat. And I know this is kind of still a big topic right now, but what was that like paradigm shift for you when it came to the nutrition side of things and seeing how, you know, maybe eating more red meat and animal-based foods was like so helpful for your body?
For sure. So, yeah, during the Ironman years, my diet then served me well. I can't speak to eating a lot of red meat during that time period because I didn't. I was eating a lot of vegetables. I was eating a high fat diet, and I believe that that high fat diet allowed me to become, just kind of an endurance machine. I taught my body to burn fat for fuel instead of just carbs for fuel. So I could go up for a very long time, not a lot of food, and I didn't need a ton of carbs to fuel my efforts. And I very rarely bonked in any training or racing. And then when I switched to CrossFit, I was still eating that similar diet, and I was having a ton of trouble putting on any kind of muscle. I was basically just stuck for 2, 3 years at the same strength, and I kind of just wrote it off to age. Like, all right, I'm never going to be a competitive CrossFit athlete. I'm not going to be strong enough. I can't get strong enough. And then in 2020, I started eating red meat again, and then much more red meat again, and I started getting stronger. And the other thing that I also did during that time period was I backed way off on running. I was running quite a bit even after the Ironman years, and the running limited me from having enough energy and strength to move heavy weight, and also it limited some of my mobility to be able to do a lot of the Olympic lifting necessary in CrossFit. So yeah, the two big things for me were backing off on running. That allowed me to lift heavier. That allowed me to be more explosive, to focus more on anaerobic efforts, and then, eating much more meat than I was in those Ironman years, and specifically quite a bit of red meat. And yeah, I've put on about 12 pounds since 12 to 15 pounds since 2019. I was about 170 then, and now I weigh about 185. And I feel good. I mean, I feel energized. I feel strong. I feel powerful, but I still have considerable endurance for, longer efforts. The only thing that I definitely have lost a bit on is running, just because I'm not doing it. And I feel like running is very, very specific. I can run a mile to maybe 5 miles pretty fast, but once it gets above 5 or 6 miles, it just becomes very durability based, and I don't have that durability anymore from not running a ton.
Yeah. So then again, looking at all of these pieces, uh, you're adding, you know, maybe some change in supplements and the diet's changed. Was there any big supplements that kind of felt like it was more useful and helped a lot within that diet, or was it just the overall change in food that kind of made that big difference?
I think the change in food made the biggest difference. Creatine is something that I started again in 2019 or 2020. So I certainly think creatine helps some with the strength and ability to, gain some muscle mass in my late 30s and early 40s. Um, and then other than that, I mean, I have access to a lot of supplements. So, I like trying different stacks to see what's working for me. Honestly, the ones that I like the best are the ones where there's a behavior associated with them. So, for example, caffeine or neurogum that has caffeine, L-theanine, and B vitamins, nootropics, like things like that. Like, there's no doubt I have more energy to be able to then hit a hard workout or drop into a conversation after having those things. So supplements like that, I 100% think they work because there's a behavior associated with them. Same with Beam Dream that I've taken for years where, it just knocks me out 30 minutes after taking it. I'm super tired and I sleep all throughout the night. So I think sleep supplements, magnesium, L-theanine, GABA, nano CBD. Beam has melatonin in it, which I've taken for a very long time. I know that's a controversial one,
Yeah.
but all of those, I sleep better, and I'm a huge proponent of, I'll do whatever I can to sleep really well every single night because then I feel refreshed to be able to have an active and productive day the next day.
Yeah. And that was one thing, and I'm glad you kind of brought it up, but sleep is probably one of the biggest things that we can kind of really lean into. And it's kind of actually a harder one to do it right. And especially because with, all of the, the phones and laptops and TVs and video games that we have around us, it's kind of hard to really lean into a routine that's really good. How did you perfect your routine to where you could stay asleep, fall asleep earlier, and wake up feeling better?
Yeah, I mean the two biggest things with sleep are sticking to a very similar sleep structure. So, I'm typically in bed around 9, sleeping by 9:30. Only having a window of like 30 minutes, and that's when you go to sleep, and then same with when you wake up. I typically wake up around 6 a.m. every single day without an alarm clock. That's the best thing you can do for your sleep is having a routine. Second best is avoiding highly stimulating environments late at night. So, not, and this probably isn't going to make people, in their 20s happy, but, avoiding late night activities, unless you feel like it's worth sacrificing your sleep, which sometimes it is. I get it. But, that for me was a game changer when, I stopped having my fun in the evenings. I had my fun throughout the day, and then it was just about winding down from 8 p.m. on. Um, Sleeping in a cool environment. We have our bedroom temperature set to 63 degrees, so, very cold. I wear a sleep mask from Recovery. I wear earplugs every single night. Controlling your sleep environment is huge. Just making sure that you're in a dark sleep environment and then controlling the variables around noise. We have a chili pad in our beds. Again, just like having a cool environment is huge. And then raising your core body temperature before going to bed, about an hour to an hour and a half before going to bed. That's why I like doing that sauna session when I do, because my body is working hard to cool itself down. And, there's your body cooling itself down as part of the getting to sleep routine. So if you can take a hot Epsom salt bath, a hot shower, like an hour and a half before bed, that's going to benefit you with sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, and then is that something that you like to track consistently? Like, do you utilize Oura Ring or a Whoop to see that consistently, or do you just kind of ride off of it naturally?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of those various trackers. I had a Whoop for years. I worked with Whoop for a long time. I think being cognizant of it is definitely key, but ultimately, like you're gonna know whether or not you slept well. If you wake up groggy and not energized and in a shitty mood, it means you probably didn't sleep well. And I think most people know when they get to bed and they know when they're waking up. I have an Apple Watch now, and sometimes I'll wear it to bed and I'll, just kind of track it over time. But for the most part, again, I stick to a very similar routine of, I know when I'm going to be winding down, I know when I'm going to be sleeping by, and I know approximately what time I'm going to be waking up. And, I don't schedule anything super early in the morning unless I'm at a wellness retreat or, I have to get up really early. But generally, I just wake up naturally around 6 a.m. But yeah, I mean, I do think those things help when you are first tinkering with things so you can see if they're making a difference or not, and more than anything just making you cognizant of I want to get better sleep, so I'm going to track it. I want to lose weight, so I'm going to track my activity. I want to dial in my diet, so I'm going to track my nutrients. But I think over time it becomes habitual and you don't need to track it anymore.
Yeah, I actually I ended up doing that with the Oura Ring. I just wanted to test like how bad does utilizing my phone before I go to sleep actually affect me? And I think that was one of my favorite pieces of utilizing these types of sleep trackers is seeing the difference between rolling out, reading a book, and falling asleep with maybe like a red light on versus being on your phone, watching videos and then trying to fall asleep from there. Like actually recognizing that change and seeing that through a pattern over a few weeks and going back and forth. That was a super helpful piece for me to actually kind of understand and write out for you know the long term. But I actually ended up getting rid of I got rid of the Oura Ring just because I was like I understand what I need to do now. I don't feel like I necessarily need to see that. Um, I did want to jump back quickly though, because this is something that I see, and you've talked about it several times now. But you have such a good community around you, and it's inspiring to see that because some people feel like the you know being healthy and working out can be more isolating. how did you form this group? And it sounds like you have people coming over pretty consistently at night, and you have a good group around you. How did you build that?
I mean, I think it started initially with going to places where there were good groups, like joining a triathlon club back in Janesville, New York, where I started to meet amazing people that were into the same things I was into, and then joining CrossFit gyms where I was meeting amazing people that, we were overcoming these hard workouts together, and then Denver Sports Recovery. So I got to see it by joining all of these groups and then recognized that I wanted to host people in these ways. So, just building it here has attracted so many wonderful people into our lives. But going on wellness retreats, meeting people there has been incredibly beneficial in meeting my community. But yeah, there's these pockets out there where you can join them and, you can form friends based on, similar interests. And then, yeah, I mean, when you get to a point that you want to host in a memorable way, that's been kind of a magnet for attracting amazing people. I also host a lot of community events, and having a following on social media has made it very easy to meet people or spin up events over time. And that just came from every single day, posting some content that I thought would help people. And again, just compounding consistencies. I think I started Instagram back in 2010, so it's been 14 years of every single day creating some content that, reached at least one person, and now, tens of thousands of people every single day. And, that's ultimately how you can attract lots of amazing people into your life.
Yeah, especially when, the events that you guys are doing or even just following your day are quite exciting and fun. Because again, I'm watching that. I'm like, once I'm done, I'm gonna hit up this guy. I gotta go and just like experience that because it just looks fun being in the mountains or doing your outdoor stuff. To even you guys were doing like ice baths in some like cold rivers and stuff like that. I feel like I've seen some posts like that, so it
Mhm.
definitely looks like something that would be attracting a lot of people. Um, so I do want to jump to the business side of things though, because I feel like you've done such a good job on the marketing side. But even before that, I think it's interesting to like really see how you would build a good company. Because like you could go into business for the wrong reasons and actually not really have it end up going the way you wanted it. But I feel like a lot of the businesses that you're pouring yourself into are benefiting a lot of people. The one thing that I loved was like the chip company Masa that you're doing. Like that's
Mhm.
awesome. Like you're creating a phenomenal product that is helping people. Again, people love crunching on chips. And so if you could produce a good, like a really good product that can affect a lot of people, that's huge and that's awesome. So what would be your basis on starting a good company, we'll call it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, is it an extension of you? That's something I've really recognized lately. Like all of the brands I work with, they're just extensions of how I live my life, and they're very authentic to me. I mean, I'm using them day in and day out. I love them. I love the people behind them. I love their messaging. I love that many of them are building communities. So I think that's the best way to build a company is think about what is an extension of you and what do you want to do for a 5 year period, because that's generally how long it's going to take to really drop in and become successful and build a team and build a brand and ultimately have customers. Um, so that's something that I think about when I'm building businesses or I'm partnering with people is it an extension of me? And I mean, the best brands, they're really good at making people feel like you're a part of them. You're a part of the brand. So 10,000 or Ketone IQ, for an example, both of those brands have done a great job of making you feel like you're part of this amazing community by buying their products. I like products too where you feel a certain way, like the sauna, the ice barrel. Like you can't say that you don't feel a certain way after getting out of a ice barrel or getting out of a sauna. So I like companies where like there's a feeling associated with it. Nootropic companies, NeuroGum. I love NeuroGum. I feel a certain way every single time I chew it. And then Beam Dream, there's, that behavior associated with it. And then, as far as like the investing side and companies that are growing the fastest, they're really good at figuring out customer acquisition costs and having really good product market fit. So, Create Creatine Gummies. That's a brand that I invested in. That's a brand that I raised SPV for. That's a brand that is growing really fast, and they have great product market fit, and they also hit a trend at the perfect time. There's a lot of people talking about creatine right now. There's a lot of people that are just now starting to take creatine that are recognizing the benefits beyond just the bodybuilding space, that there's all of these neurological benefits for it. And the founder of that company is very good at understanding kind of new age marketing. He understands Meta, he understands TikTok, he understands how to advertise on those platforms, and he has a great long-term value of clients, and he has very good customer acquisition costs. So, those are the things that I'm looking for when I'm investing in a company or I'm raising money for a company.
Mm. And then again, you're helping on the marketing side, and like you just said, being able to lean into all of these social media platforms is such like a great new age way to like market as quickly as you can. How do you effectively do that as, you're an individual, you play into these companies. How do you feel like you kind of really help and build these companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think I add the most value early on because I've worked with so many early stage companies. I understand who to identify as the faces of your company. I understand what influencers out there convert well for wellness brands. I understand how to incentivize them. I know what value creators bring based on their audience and engagement. Um, I understand, meta advertising enough that I can advise on that. I have a lot of contacts in the space, whether it's, the finance people, the growth agencies, the creatives. So I can make a lot of those connections. And I've just met a ton of people in this space over the years. So I can seed product to all of my friends who are also in this same place, and they can amplify the awareness, beyond what I can just do on my feed. But as far as me personally creating content, I'm just kind of sharing how I'm using things in my daily life, and how they've benefited me. Um, and I try to do that in a really authentic, non-salesy way, just to show like I wear 10,000 gear when I'm working out, and I use my sauna and my ice barrel every single night, and here are the different supplements that I enjoy taking and I think have helped me over time. Here's the food products that I perceive to be better for you than a lot of other products on the market. Here's my diet and routine. You can glean what you want from it, and, tailor it to how it fits with your lifestyle. So, I try not to be preachy. Like, I don't want to be a fear mongering guy. I don't want to say, you have to do this. This is the best. Like, I'm literally just sharing my life and, the things that have benefited me over the years. And then, on the brand side, again, I like working with these early stage wellness brands because ultimately I want to add a lot of value. I don't want to feel like I'm just a billboard and it's just a transaction. I want to have relationships and I want to add a ton of value for the people that I'm working with. And I mean, the people I'm working with, the majority of them have become very close friends. These balloons behind me right here are
Yeah.
because Wyatt from Ice Barrel was just here for the last 4 days, and we were celebrating his birthday. And prior to him being here, Pete from Sisu Sauna was here. And prior to Pete, Matt from Beam was here. So, I mean, all of these people have become very good friends. And, I want it to be a good friendship and a good business relationship.
Hmm. And then, so again, you're seeing all these businesses. What are like just some very obvious markers to you when they are starting to where it's like clicking, this is going to be a company that's going to explode. I definitely want to jump into that company.
I mean, growth, consumer growth. If they have customers they're gaining new customers every single month and they are maintaining current customers, that's a pretty good indication. If it's a startup and they don't have customers yet, then I'm kind of looking at the market opportunity. I'm looking at the branding. I'm looking at the operator. I mean, has the operator already done this and they're just on to their next venture, so they understand how to build a team and how to grow a company? Um, but yeah, I mean, just look at the customer growth. Is it growing well, and are they acquiring customers at a rapid rate? And early on, a lot of times, companies, they're losing money early on because they're spending quite a bit on marketing and startup costs. So it's just kind of looking at, the spend versus customer acquisition. You want to see both of them going up pretty fast.
Okay. And then just to touch on the company side, just finally, if someone was looking into starting their own company, let's say in the health and wellness space, and they were kind of hesitant, what would be the reasoning for jumping in and actually going after it and starting it in your mind?
I mean, it's so fun, like just defining your own destiny. And that's why I got into entrepreneurship. Like I want to own my successes and I want to own my failures. I don't want to rely on others for either of those. So, I mean, that's why I ultimately got into entrepreneurship. And I love progression on my terms. Like I want to be the person who defines whether I'm successful or whether, I fail at something. It's fun, it's rewarding, it's hard, it's challenging. There's all these obstacles along the way that you have to overcome. I mean, I kind of look at it like training for an Ironman or training for CrossFit. There's ups and downs, which I like. I like emotion and I want to feel something every single day, whether it's good or bad. So those are all of the reasons why I've really enjoyed entrepreneurship. And, it's really cool when you have these people buying into your brand, buying your products. Like it's so fulfilling, like owning the restaurants for me and owning the gym for me. It was so cool leaving people with this memorable experience and, changing their life for the better of them committing to this healthier lifestyle of going to the gym or, eating healthier food every single day. So it's cool impacting people in a positive way.
Yeah. I just every time I think of like a good company, especially on the marketing side and everything that you've kind of named, my idea always just goes to like BPN and Nick Bear because I feel like
It's great.
he created such a good environment and it's like you want to be a part of that. You watch him train and work out, you're like it's so inspiring to see that, especially him pushing for like the ultra marathons and stuff like that. But just to wrap this up, if you could give me maybe one or two things that in your space right now, maybe within the companies you're working with or you're building on, what's exciting you and what's something that's coming up that you're excited to see?
The things that are exciting me the most in the wellness space are, I think in the next few years, we're going to have things that can track what's going on underneath the hood. So, kind of like a continuous glucose monitor that's monitoring your blood sugar levels, something that is continuously monitoring LDL and testosterone and cortisol, and then in real time making recommendations based on those things. I think we're getting closer and closer to that. I mean, it's just kind of crazy that still, a lot of people don't know if they have cancer or not unless they're getting regular checkups. I think we can really expand our health span and lifespan, if we really understand what's going on under the hood on a continual daily basis. So that excites me. Um, and then things that I'm excited for this year, I've been hosting these founders only retreats. I have another one coming up in Palm Springs in October where I curate it with 30 to 35 founders, mainly of wellness brands, some creators, some investors. I started doing those last year, and that's really, really been fun and rewarding. Just putting a group of people together where the sum is massively greater than the parts, and everyone can learn from each other. And I've just seen so many strong friendships and business relationships come from these founders only events. I'm co-hosting a creator event in Austin next week with my buddy Dom Fusco. So excited to do more of those on the creator front where, we're just getting a bunch of creators together where same thing, the sum is greater than the parts and people can, trade contacts and brand deals and what's working for them. So yeah, I love bringing people together and just kind of seeing things blossom from that.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I got a bunch from this podcast, and hopefully, the people listening also were able to learn from your perfect day and the brands you've been able to build. But I thank you for your time, and I'm excited to keep watching these brands and your own personal brand kind of build from there.
Thanks, Brandon.
All right, we'll catch you guys soon. Thanks for watching.